Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
When I was a freshman, I was this scrawny kid who kept to himself and tried not to cause trouble. I had thick glasses, braces, and wore hand-me-down clothes that never fit right. Easy target, basically. That's when this guy started picking on me. Let's just call him the bully, since I don't want to use his real name. He was bigger than me, played on the football team, and had this group of friends who thought everything he did was hilarious. At first, it was just small stuff like knocking books out of my hands, calling me names in the hallway, that sort of thing. But it got worse over the years. By junior year, he was shoving me into lockers, stealing my lunch money, and making my life hell. The worst part was that the teachers never seemed to catch him doing it. He was smart about it, always picking spots where there weren't any cameras or adults around. I tried telling my parents, but they just said to ignore him and he'd get bored. I tried telling teachers, but without proof, it was just my word against his. And since he was this popular athlete, nobody believed me. So I just suffered through it, hoping it would end when we graduated. But by senior year, I was done. I couldn't take another day of being pushed around by this jerk. That's when I realized I had an ace up my sleeve. His sister was actually one of my friends. She went to our school too, and she absolutely hated her brother. Their parents had gotten divorced 4 years earlier, and she lived with their dad while the bully lived with their mom. She knew exactly what kind of person her brother was, and she was just as tired of his behavior as I was. One day after he'd shoved me so hard I scraped my knee on the concrete, I was talking to his sister about how fed up I was. I told her I couldn't take it anymore and that 3 years of this garbage had pushed me to my breaking point. She listened to me vent and then said she was sick of him too because he made their whole family look bad. Then she asked what if we did something about it. I asked her what she meant, explaining that nobody ever believed me when I told them what he does. That's when she suggested we get proof. That's when we came up with our plan. She knew exactly where her brother liked to hang out during lunch and after school. There was this spot behind the gym where he and his friends would go to smoke and mess with kids. No cameras, no teachers, perfect for his little power trips. So we started documenting everything. She would position herself where she could film with her phone while I would walk by with my audio recording app running. At first, I was terrified, but I knew this was my only shot at making it stop. The first time we did it, he saw me and immediately started his usual routine. He called me a loser in front of his friends and asked what I was doing in his territory. Then he shoved me backwards into the wall. His sister got it all on video while I recorded the audio. My heart was pounding, but we had evidence. We kept this up for almost 3 months. Every few days I'd accidentally end up in his territory and he'd do his thing. Push me around, call me names, sometimes kick my backpack across the ground. Each time we got it on camera. But here's the thing. During those 3 months, we discovered I wasn't his only victim. There were 7 other kids he was terrorizing. Some were younger students, some were in our grade. All of them were too scared to speak up, just like I had been. So we brought them into our plan. His sister would film while each of them took turns running into the bully at his usual spot. Soon we had nearly 100 videos and audio recordings of him bullying different students. After collecting evidence for months, I told his sister I thought we had enough. She agreed and said this was going to destroy him. I asked if she was sure she wanted to do this since he was still her brother. She replied that he stopped being her brother the day he became a monster and told me we should end this. With about a month left before graduation, I gathered all our evidence and made copies. Then I walked straight to the principal's office. The principal said the situation was quite serious and asked how long it had been going on. I told him 3 years for me, but pointed out that the videos showed he'd been doing this to lots of students. When he asked why I didn't come forward sooner, I asked him if he would have believed me without proof. The principal couldn't argue with that. Within a week, the bully was expelled. His mother was called in, and when she saw the evidence, she was furious at him. Not at us, but his sister and I weren't done yet. We knew that getting expelled wasn't enough. This guy was planning to go to college and probably continue being a bully there. His sister told me she'd found out where he applied to college and asked if I wanted to make sure they knew what kind of person they'd be accepting. I said absolutely. So we sent copies of all our evidence to every college he'd applied to, and I mean all of them. His sister had access to his application information through their shared computer at their mom's house. The results were swift. One by one, rejection letters started coming in. At first, his family thought it was just bad luck, or that his grades weren't good enough. But when nearly every school rejected him, they started to figure out what was happening. One college admissions officer wrote in an email that after reviewing the supplementary materials provided, they had decided to withdraw their offer of admission. The bully tried to apply to more schools, but word travels fast in academic circles. Soon no decent college in the country would touch him. I heard his mother screaming at him about what he had done and how he could ruin his entire future like this. He kept insisting it wasn't that bad and that it was just some harmless fun. His sister later told me that harmless fun was a joke she said to tell that to all the kids who were afraid to come to school because of him. The final straw came when his mother realized they'd have to move to another country just for him to have any chance at higher education. She was facing the prospect of uprooting her entire life because of her son's actions. But here's where the story gets even better. Just before they moved, something unexpected happened. The bully's mother, who had been fighting for custody of his sister for years, suddenly gave up. She handed full custody over to their father. His sister came to me with surprising news. She told me I'd never guess what just happened. Her mom had just signed over custody, and now she got to live with her dad full time. I said that was great, but asked why the sudden change. She explained that our plan had done more than just expose her brother. Her dad finally had enough evidence to show that their mom was harassing him and creating a toxic environment. The court saw all the chaos her brother caused and decided she'd be better off with her dad. I asked if we had accidentally saved her too, and she said more than I knew. She told me she'd been wanting to get away from that house for years. When moving day came, I happened to be walking by their old house. The bully saw me, and for a split second, I thought he might try something one last time. But then, he just looked down and kept loading boxes into the truck. His sister waved goodbye to me from her dad's car. She was staying behind, finally free from both her toxic brother and the custody battle that had been tearing her family apart for years. The bully never apologized to me or any of his other victims. Even when his world crumbled around him, he couldn't admit that what he'd done was wrong. But watching him load his entire life into a truck because nobody in the country wanted anything to do with him, that was apology enough for me. The 7 other kids he'd been bullying all thanked me personally. Some of them said they'd been having nightmares about him for months, and now they could finally sleep peacefully knowing he was gone. I finished high school without having to look over my shoulder every day. I had just gotten fired from Home Depot in May because this manager there absolutely hated how well I was doing. The guy made my life miserable until he finally found an excuse to get rid of me. So there I was, unemployed and stressed about money. I've been applying everywhere and finally got a call back from the wireless company headquarters in my city for a walk-in interview. The morning of the interview, I had this huge fight with my mom. We got into it about something stupid, but it turned into this massive screaming match. I was already dealing with losing my job, and now my own mother was giving me grief. I left the house feeling like garbage, but I had to pull myself together for this interview. I put on my best outfit, a white-collared button-up shirt, black dress pants, and this pink tie that meant everything to me. I wore that tie to my grandmother's funeral in 2015, and it was one of the few nice things I owned. The people at the wireless company actually loved it during the interview. They said it showed personality and that they appreciated someone who wasn't afraid to stand out. The interview went amazing. I nailed every question, and they practically told me the job was mine. But I was still shaken up from the fight with my mom earlier. Instead of going straight home, I decided to stop by the mall to walk around and clear my head. Sometimes shopping helps me think, even if I'm just browsing. I was walking through the mall in my interview clothes, just minding my own business, when I felt someone grab my shoulder hard and yank me backward. I heard this loud ripping sound and knew immediately that something bad had happened to my shirt. I turned around to see this woman in her 50s with that classic haircut and angry expression. She immediately started yelling at me to leave the mall and never come back. She said she didn't know how I got out of prison, but that I should be locked away for what I did. I was completely confused and asked her who she was. She then threatened to call the police and said there were children around and that I shouldn't be near them. I told her I had no idea what she was talking about. She started yelling for security while pulling out her phone. I could see people starting to stare, and my anxiety was going through the roof. She called me a predator and said she was calling the police because I shouldn't be around when there were so many kids in the mall. That's when it hit me. She thought I was some kind of criminal who hurt children. My bald head reminded her of someone, but the rest of my body is at least twice as big as whoever she thought I was. I'm not exactly a small guy, and I couldn't believe someone would make such a crazy assumption. The security guard came over and told me I should stay to give my side of the story when the police arrived. I really didn't want to, but I was already in such a bad mood from everything that had happened that day. I was ready to set this woman straight. Plus, the security guard was actually someone I'd seen around the mall before. We'd chatted a few times, seemed like a good guy. When the police showed up, this woman ran up to them in a panic, pointing at me and carrying on. Before I could even say a word, they put me in handcuffs. Here I was, dressed professionally, having done nothing wrong, and I'm being treated like a criminal. Thankfully, the security guard stepped in and explained what really happened. The officers ran my ID and did a background check. Clean record, obviously. They took off the handcuffs and pulled up the actual photo of the person she thought I was. The guy in the file was 6'3". I'm barely 5'7". He had a light brown beard while mine is dark brown, almost black, and I just have a goatee. We looked nothing alike except for being bald. Even when seeing the proof, she kept insisting they couldn't let me go and that I was still a criminal. She claimed she saw me talking to kids in the game store. I explained that the kid was with his mom, who happened to be a good friend of mine. I told her if she was really that shallow to judge someone on how they look and who they talk to, then she was just insane. I also pointed out that she had ruined my shirt that I wore to my grandmother's funeral and that I would be pressing charges. The police told her she was acting immature and apologized to me before taking her to their car. I watched them lead her away, and while part of me felt satisfied, I was still shaken up by the whole thing. This incident really messed with my head. I've been bullied all through elementary, middle, and high school because I'm overweight. Getting this kind of treatment from a grown woman in her 50s brought back all those feelings of being judged and humiliated. My anxiety got so much worse after this, and my self-esteem took a huge hit. She ended up being charged with disturbing the peace, making false accusations, filing a false emergency report, and destruction of property since my $75 shirt was ruined. I did get that job at the wireless company, which helped financially, but I started seeing a therapist to deal with the anxiety this whole experience triggered. My family was stable when I was growing up. My dad worked construction and made good money, while my mom stayed home with me and my younger siblings. We weren't rich, but we had everything we needed. That all changed when I was 13. My dad was working on a big project when he fell from some scaffolding. The accident messed up his back badly. One of the discs in his spine got pushed out of place. The doctors called it a disc protrusion. He couldn't lift anything heavy anymore, which meant his construction days were over. Workers' compensation helped for a while, but it wasn't enough to cover all our bills. When our savings got smaller and smaller, my parents started to panic. The mortgage payment was coming up along with the car payment on our 2012 Nissan that we were still paying off. My dad knew he had to find a way to make money fast, even if his back wasn't the same. That's when he remembered something about his childhood. His mother was originally from a small reservation town about 45 minutes from where we lived. Since she was part of the tribe, that meant my dad had tribal ancestry too. He could legally sell food there. My parents decided to start a small food business on the reservation. We bought some ice chests, set up a simple booth, and started selling traditional Mexican food that my mom cooked. The first few weeks were rough. People in the town were suspicious of us because we were outsiders. Most folks just walked past our booth without even looking. We were starting to worry that this plan wasn't going to work. Then we met this older woman who seemed really sweet. She was probably in her late 60s with gray hair and a kind smile. Let's call her Karen since that's what she turned out to be. At first, Karen was one of our only regular customers. She'd come by our booth almost every day, buy some food, and chat with my parents about how business was going. She seemed to genuinely care about our family situation. My parents were so grateful to have someone supporting us during those early days. Karen would tell other people in town that our food was good, which helped us get a few more customers. We thought she was just a nice lady who wanted to help a struggling family. We made sure to follow all the health rules we knew about. We wore gloves when handling food and had a small hand washing station set up. We were trying our best to do everything right. But one day, everything changed. Karen came walking over to our booth with an angry look on her face. Her whole attitude was completely different. Karen demanded that we go home and leave the area. When my dad asked her why, she exploded and told us we were stealing all of her business. My dad tried to explain that this was a competitive market, but she wasn't having any of it. She started yelling that we weren't even from there and pointed angrily at our car like owning a decent vehicle was somehow wrong. My dad tried to explain that we were only doing this to keep our car and to keep the water running in our house. But Karen just kept screaming at us to go away because we didn't belong there. This was the same woman who had been so nice to us for weeks. Now she was screaming at us like we had done something terrible. The way she was staring at us was scary. Karen walked back to her own car and made a phone call. My dad just stood there, confused about what had just happened. A few minutes later, a police car pulled up. The officer got out and talked to my dad for a while. I couldn't hear everything they said, but I could tell it wasn't good news. After the cop left, my dad told us we had to pack up early that day. On the drive home, my dad explained what happened. Apparently, we needed special permits and licenses to sell food on the reservation. Karen had called the police on us because we didn't have the right paperwork. The officer was nice enough to give my dad a website where we could take an online test to get the permits. That night, my whole family sat around the computer taking the test. It wasn't too hard, and we all passed. We even got the permits and licenses printed out and laminated them so we could hang them on our ice chests. A few days later, we went back to the reservation with our new permits. Karen saw us sitting up and came over again, still looking angry. Karen told us again that she thought she had made it clear we should go away. My dad explained that we had left like she wanted, but now we were back with all the proper permits and licenses, so she couldn't force us to leave anymore. He showed her all our paperwork and then asked her in a mocking tone if she had the same documents. Karen just looked at us and walked back to her car. Then she drove away without saying another word. After that, we started paying attention to how Karen was running her own food booth. What we saw was pretty gross. She would handle food without wearing gloves. She didn't have a proper hand washing station. We even saw her take money from customers and then touch food right after without washing her hands. My parents started taking pictures and videos of all these health violations. After we had collected enough evidence, my dad submitted it all to the tribal health services. The woman who answered the phone at the health department was really interested in what we had to show them. She told us that Karen had actually reported more people to them than anyone else. They decided to do a background check on Karen and found out that she didn't have any of the required licenses or permits that she had demanded we get. A few days later, a health inspector showed up at Karen's booth. After looking around for a while, he shut her down completely. He said her setup was unfit for food handling and gave her a big fine on top of everything else. The next summer, when I was 14, business was going much better for us. It was really hot in Arizona, so my dad offered me $10 to stand on the street corner with a sign advertising our booth. I didn't mind the heat, and it turned out to be pretty fun. People would take pictures with me and the sign. Some even recorded videos of me dancing around with it, which gave us even more advertising when they posted them online. One day, I was out there spinning the sign when Karen drove up in her white car. She rolled down her window and started screaming racist slurs at me, telling me to go home and do that in my own hometown instead. Then she hit the gas and sped away, leaving me standing there shocked. I had never had anyone say something like that to me before. I was just a kid trying to help my family. I walked back to our booth and told my parents what happened. My dad was furious. We went straight to the police station and filed a report. I had to give a statement about exactly what Karen said and when it happened. The police said they would pay Karen a visit to talk to her about it. When the officers ran Karen's name through their system, they found out she had an outstanding warrant for her arrest. She ended up spending 2 weeks in jail. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.